Good morning. Welcome to today's U of I Extension webinar program. I'm Nancy Wodralgo. I'm a Community and Economic Development Specialist with the University of Illinois Extension. I'm happy to have Matt Schmit on the call today, who is with the Broadband Office, and he is also bringing along with him Ashley Hitt, who is Vice President of GeoAnalytics at Connected Nation, as well as Mark Messer, and Connected Nation is looking to improve lives by providing innovative solutions that expand access to and increase the adoption and use of broadband, high-speed internet, and its related technologies for all people. So we're really happy to have you on today, and happy to have Matt back on, and really just looking forward to a great session. So I'm going to hand it over now to you, Matt.
Thanks a lot, Nancy. And before we kick things off, my obligatory thank you to the University of Illinois and the Extension Services and all the support that you've provided. We're going on 3 years now of this great collaboration. And so thank you. If anybody's ever suffering from sleep apnea, check out the catalog of all of the great webinar content. You can hear my voice for hours upon hours. But in all seriousness, there's some great guest speakers and good content housed within the University of Illinois Extension's online curation of this content. And so check it out if you need it. But the focus of today's session, it's a really important topic, and it's getting mapping right. And for the last couple of years, the Office of Broadband has collaborated with Connected Nation. Really looking forward to sharing some of their perspective with you today on the Illinois Broadband Map. And so for all the providers who have contributed to that map, thank you very much. The search for more accurate, granular, timely mapping and broadband data has been a challenge and a goal for states for a decade plus. And we're at a stage right now where we're turning the corner on how the Federal Communications Commission and our federal partners collects data and produces mapping. And our hope is that these state broadband mapping efforts will become increasingly unnecessary because the federal mapping is going to become so darn good. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to invest in our great mapping, and we're going to hope that we're able to support the federal mapping that's taking place as best we can. And so as we move forward in the year ahead, getting our best understanding of where serviceable locations for broadband are in the state is number one priority. Helping us perfect our mapping, help the FCC get its mapping right, and also help drive the formula funding for the Broadband Equity, Access, and Deployment Program, the BEAD program, drive that formula funding to the right level so that Illinois is capturing its fair share of federal dollars to help us meet our goals of universal broadband access and service throughout the state. And so with that said, just a couple of quick things, folks. You've heard from Connected Nation. If you're a provider, please provide your data. We're going to continue to collect data and build our Illinois broadband map as we have in the past, updated twice a year. And so we need data now in order to produce the map that's going to be available to the public at the end of the calendar year. In addition, take full part in the mapping exercise, the challenge process that the FCC is setting up. Really important that we have full participation among all of our providers. And again, we want to start a conversation today. Our Office of Broadband, Connected Nation, the university, helping our communities, our broadband providers get it right when it comes to broadband mapping. And so with that said, I think the best use of our time today is if I say as less as possible and turn the mic over to my colleagues, Mark Messer and Ashley Hitt with Connected Nation. Mark, Ashley, take it away.
All right, thanks, Matt. Are you able to see my screen?
We can.
Perfect. All right, so as Nancy and Matt said, my name is Ashley Hitt. I'm with Connected Nation. I specifically work in our GeoAnalytics department, working with the various types of data and information that you all as providers have available, trying to remain as flexible as possible as far as what we're able to get so we can try to standardize that into some location intelligence across the board. And I'd like Mark Messer to introduce himself real quick.
Hey everyone, this is Mark Messer. I'm a broadband data manager at Connected Nation. And of course, you've been hearing from me as well as probably Hannah Burkholtz and a few others on our team reaching out to collect the data and also provide you additional information as we get it from an educational purpose as well. I'll leave it there and then we'll just keep going right into the presentation and the questions.
All right. And so today we really just have a few slides to kind of go over what we've been working on, what the hope was in terms of this specific data cycle, and then how we're going to provide some alternates to continue working with you all as far as what data and information you do have and what you do feel comfortable with. And then we'll just open it up for questions. So definitely want to be very cognizant of the concerns and questions that you all have as a provider community as you are working through some of these new programs with the FCC and data filings to make sure that we can assist you as much as possible through this process. So in terms of the Illinois broadband mapping, we've been working with the Illinois Office of Broadband to develop the updated broadband maps twice a year at this point. And so this has been going on. This is now year 3 that we are working with IOB. And as Matt mentioned, the objective is to aggregate and analyze the most detailed, accurate broadband service areas possible, looking to do that by technology and by speeds so that we can kind of cut the data in different ways to see where there are locations that don't have at least 25 by 3, okay, where are there locations that don't have at least 100 by 20, and be able to provide that level of detail to not only the state, but to be able to work with what grant funding and other funding opportunities are available to be able to do that. So being able to really identify those unserved locations, underserved locations, whether it's by area or like literally that specific address level that we're now moving into more with the FCC data, this information is going to impact various funding opportunities. And so defining eligibility based on different speed definitions and different areas that do and do not have various levels of service is a huge part of that. So right now we're in the middle of the data collection cycle for the current maps to be updated. And so as Mark said, you've heard from him, you've heard from Hannah in terms of requesting some of that updated information, data, coverage areas, speeds, whatever the situation is for your network, how has it changed since the last map has been produced? So right now we've been hoping to get the newest data or confirm that there are no updates based on what we have mapped currently for your service area, technologies and speeds, to get that essentially as close to the end of the month as possible. That way we can get everything processed. There's over 125 individual providers across the state of Illinois. So working with each of you on the data that you do have available, what changes there are, making sure that it's incorporated the most accurate way possible. And so initially, when we started the data collection cycle, we were looking to request the FCC, the new broadband data collection or BDC filing, attempting to decrease the burden on you all as providers, and hopefully being able to supply that updated data to us, whether it was the Polygon service area based format going to the BDC system or the fabric level data going to the BDC system. However, a significant number of you all as providers have expressed issues or challenges with the BDC filing, whether it's with the fabric data set or how it overlays with your service areas. And so we have heard from a large number of you all that you have concerns and are perhaps hesitant to share that data because it may not feel that it's the most representative of your service area, the accuracy, the precise level of the detailed and granular data. So what we want to do, we want to pivot a little bit. So if you are comfortable with your BDC filing, whether that is the service area Polygon that you may have uploaded to the FCC portal, or if you have done the fabric level and are comfortable with it, we are definitely still very happy to receive that data and use that for the basis of your service area for the upcoming Illinois broadband map. But if you are not comfortable with the way that represents your service area, we would like to continue working with you the way we have the past couple years. So if you do have other various data sets, whether it's in a KMZ format or some other geospatial file, or if you have spreadsheets of equipment locations or addresses that you could possibly serve, if you even have PDFs already of any kind of outlines or boundaries that show where you offer specific service that we can then translate and convert for you, we are happy to accept any of that data. Essentially, the goal, as Matt mentioned, was to make the most accurate, detailed broadband maps possible so we can more accurately identify who's still being left behind in those communities that need assistance, and then be able to provide you all as providers opportunities for grant applications and other funding to be able to expand your services to meet these people that currently do not have service at their home location. So we definitely want to continue working with you on what you do feel comfortable with. And so being able to process any of those areas, work with you on, if there is any part that might be for interpretation or some type of analysis, working back and forth with you all to say, oh, hey, I don't go past Highway 90, we need to cut that. Or, oh, hey, there's this new neighborhood that we now serve, we need to add that in. So working very closely with you on that process, the data and information that you do have available, or if your information has not changed, there hasn't been any build out since the last map, or the speeds have not changed, let us know that as well. And we can go ahead and kind of close out your record essentially to say, hey, we've confirmed there's no update, the data is good to go as is. Or, if it's just if the service area hasn't changed, but the speeds have been upgraded, that is definitely an update we want to take into account. Or the speeds have stayed the same, but our service area has expanded, or both. Whatever the situation is, we want to work with you on making sure that you're represented the most accurately on the map. We don't want to misrepresent anybody's service area. We don't want to have it overestimated or underestimated, because both of those provide issues to making sure that the maps are as accurate as possible. So really with that in mind, want to go ahead and open it up now for any questions that you all as a provider community may have. I've got Mark and Hannah's contact information on there. Every provider in Illinois has worked with either Mark or Hannah this data cycle or the previous ones that we've had available. I've also included the email address for the IOB, as well as the Illinois Broadband Lab, where all the links to all the various types of maps and information are published as well. So I am happy to open it up for any questions or concerns that you all may have in terms of working with us on data.
So thanks a lot, Ashley. I'll just take this first question here. There's I'll pose the question in a new way. In the chat box, a question was raised, where can we submit the data? But let's take a step back. If there's a provider that has not worked with you in providing data for the Illinois broadband map, how do you get that conversation started? And what sorts of steps are there or assurances that we're able to provide for providers that just want to make sure that their data is protected and so forth? Can you run us through that process a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. So every provider that we know of, and we try to do research in between every data cycle to make sure if there are new providers to the market that have just launched or started their service or have been merged or acquired, try to make sure that we have all those notes available. But if for some reason you are a provider that has not received outreach from either Mark or Hannah within the past month or so, please email Mark and he will get that process started with you. Or if we may have perhaps reached out to somebody else at your organization and have not connected the right person to the right data at this point. But Mark, any other follow-up there?
Absolutely. Just shoot me an email, and also I'll put my cell number in the chat as well. If you want to give me a call and leave me a voicemail, or if I don't pick up, give me a voicemail and I'll get right back to you.
All right. And Ashley, Mark, if you guys don't mind just taking a moment, just talking about the process for putting the next iteration of the Illinois broadband map together. We're collecting data now through the end of the week, September 30th. If folks have data that they'd like to share next week, first week in October, I assume that we'll take it. But can you talk a little bit about what happens once you receive data, maybe traditional data that we've collected over the last couple of years, putting that into a map? And while you're answering that question, folks, I really do encourage anybody who does have questions about anything mapping related, please throw them in the chat box. We'd love to get to them today.
Sure. So the process that we've taken for the broadband mapping steps is certainly working with you all on what data you do have. Since everybody's operations is different and the type of data or information you all manage, maintain completely varies by technology type, by type of provider, size of provider. We see a wide range of the types of information that you all do have available to say, here's here's where I can serve. Here's the technology in which areas that can serve residents. Here's which speeds. Oh, it's, this area has a higher speed, this area is lower. We're getting ready to upgrade it, whatever the situation is. So we will take and try to remain as flexible as possible to be able to work with you on whatever data you do have so that we can convert it to a geospatial format and then be able to get that into something more standardized so that when we have data from all 125 plus providers across the state, that we can aggregate all of that together and then be able to say, oh, here are the areas that have at least 25 by 3, areas that have at least 100 by 20, whatever other speed delineations or thresholds there might need to be for analysis. And so being able to aggregate all of that together, then be able to run some estimates on the number of served and unserved or underserved households there are across the state. So that way we can then look county by county and see, okay, which counties are the least connected that may need more assistance or community outreach to make sure that the needs of communities are being met. Or if there are local providers there who already have plans to expand, those can be taken into account. And so being able to process each individual provider's data into the most updated version, work back and forth with you on any edits, revisions, updates there need to be past that. Then kind of finalizing that data set for this, whatever the current data collection cycle is, doing all the analyses, looking at the density of providers, looking at the density of unserved areas, running some statistics by different congressional districts and school districts. That way we can even look at, how many student homes might be lacking broadband service. And so if they can't do virtual learning or remote learning for an educational component, being able to look at that. So being able to really aggregate all of that data, run several analyses, put several reports together, and then also update not only the what we call the static maps or the PDF versions of the maps that might be available by county for the statewide level, but then also updating the interactive map. And so there's a couple different versions of the interactive map. There's one that's kind of I'll call it the one-stop shop that has all of the data, all of the analyses. You can do different searches. You can look at different types of boundaries and try to see, what does broadband look like in specific areas. And then there's also a kind of a lighter version of the interactive map that, maybe there are residents who just want to get kind of the basics for their area. And so there is kind of that lighter version of the interactive map that doesn't have as much in terms of data layers, functionality tools. But whoever is comfortable with it, we certainly have that kind of the one-stop shop version that contains literally everything, all of the functionality. And we keep adding more and more to it as there are different data layers or analyses or different tools that people find useful in terms of being able to not only see what the picture of broadband looks like right now, but looking more specifically at those unserved and underserved areas to be able to make those more informed decisions and analysis-driven decisions to be able to know where the biggest impact is going to be on unserved communities.
Great. Well, you just described weeks and weeks of work in a couple of minutes there. So I know a lot goes into it. And I think one thing that's just really worth emphasizing is the FCC, of course, is changing the kind of data that they're collecting, the kind of data maps that they're going to produce. The knock on the previous federal maps is that they were not granular and that they relied too much on census block data. You had a couple of households that had the service at a certain threshold, and the whole block was considered served at that threshold. And so as we move forward, it strikes me, Ashley, that we have a real opportunity to look within each census block and get a good understanding of the number of households that are served or serviceable locations that are served versus those that are not. Can you comment a little bit about how we expect the Illinois broadband map to change as a result of this approach? And also what we've done in the past if we don't get data directly from a provider and we have to resort to that FCC data?
Mm-hmm. So I'll start with your latter question first. So while we've been working with you all, the provider community, for a couple of years now, there are still a very small number of providers that maybe have not had resources or information available to actively participate in the mapping process. And so we have a team of engineers in terms of looking at field validation activities, being able to go out into specific areas, either confirm the presence of different types of technologies and available speeds, or to be able to create an estimate of what the service area of a provider might look like based on the assets and infrastructure that we'll see in the field. So if we have to rely on 477 data, the census block data Matt was just describing, if we have to start with that, then we will hopefully work with the provider to kind of cut that down or pare that down to find those areas of overstatement. So there is a more accurate data set on file for each and every provider that exists. So if we have to kind of start at a more overstated version with that census blocks, we do keep continuously cutting that down, working with the provider to say, oh, hey, here's what we found in the field. We want to see if that matches up with your all's understanding, and be able to try and lessen the burden for participation as much as possible. And that's why we try to stay very flexible as far as what data we accept, because if we just say, oh, it has to be in this format, in this file extension, that is very limiting. And so with our software and analysts that we have, we are able to accept so many different styles of data, to process it, to convert it, to form, whatever that form is. We want to be able to say, all right, here's what we can help do and process for you all, the providers. And then Matt, to your first question in terms of like how the Illinois broadband map is changing. So certainly the focus had been on service areas, and over the course of the next year, it'll be kind of migrating and transitioning more to that location-based data. And so Illinois has a nearly complete address point data set that at least we're in the middle of reviewing and looking through all the different complexities of the county by county data. But it seems to be fairly accurate in terms of, making sure those address points are in the right location, that the right address is assigned to the right point. And so as we get more in depth with the review of that address level data, that is one part of the analysis that will come out at some point next year, is being able to overlay the broadband service areas on this good solid address data, so that we know specifically where the locations that are unserved and underserved. And then that way better cost modeling can be done from a provider perspective to say, oh, hey, all of these unserved addresses are clustered and they only have, their driveways are 100 feet, as opposed to a more rural area that might have very sparsely populated. The unserved households might be very, very widespread. They might have half-a-mile driveways. And obviously that's going to play a role in how much cost it's going to take to connect, depending on the technology type. So being able to have that really precise address level data is going to really help us move forward to connect the last of the people in our communities that are not currently served.
Great. And thanks for that. And maybe with this next question that appeared in the chat box, we can kind of take a step back and look at the big picture nationally. What our federal partners are going to be doing, asking of us, asking of the provider community, and in individual communities around the state and the country in the year ahead. And I think the question in the chat box, will the public and municipalities that have been working on broadband and grant funding have an opportunity to challenge data submitted by providers? And that's been, I think, one of the criticisms of the FCC mapping over the years, is that there's not a real hard check on what's submitted. And from our perspective, when we operate a grant program or an Office of Broadband, we recognize that no broadband map is going to be perfect. And then whether overstatements of service are intentional or accidental, that you really have to dig deeper. And how do you dig deeper? One thing is, we've ingrained in our grant program, Connect Illinois grant program, a mapping review process that really opens up the conversation for stakeholders, whether they're community members, incumbent providers, others with an interest in where grant dollars go and making sure their communities are served, have an opportunity to weigh in on the accuracy of the maps. And so that mapping review process, it really is ongoing, but we have a lot of attention given to it when we're in the process of awarding grants. That sort of process can take into account a lot of different kind of measures. One thing that's been popular is speed tests that folks can take at home. Those themselves are imperfect and have their limitations. But when you look at the trends that they're telling you and compare that against what a map might tell you, it allows us to isolate an area that might need further attention. And so, Ashley and your colleagues, you've been great in supplying field validation time in getting crews out in the field, helping us pinpoint service realities where the maps tell us one thing and maybe speed tests tell us another. And so I guess the question I would lead to here is, Ashley, if we could take a step back and talk a little bit about the challenge processes that are available to communities and to providers at the national level in the months ahead, in kind of the landscape that we're operating in under the Data Act and what the FCC and eventually NTIA will be doing.
Absolutely. So there's definitely going to be several opportunities to challenge, whether it's the broadband data or the address level data. So currently on the Illinois interactive map, if you search a location and it's your house and it says, oh, here are the providers available to me, and you or a resident looks at that and goes, oh wait, I called that provider, they said they can't get to me, or I'm half a mile away from the nearest connection point. Whatever the situation is, if that information seems to be incorrect, there is a link there to report incorrect information. And so we can get that, work with the providers on correcting that, look at confirming the information so that the next iteration of the state broadband map has an opportunity to be further refined where necessary. And then on the national level with the FCC information, they have two different types of challenge processes. One is open right now, and that is specific to the fabric or the address level data set. And so if there are missing locations, I know that's one of the things that we've heard from the providers is that, they went to, you all went to overlay your service area with the fabric addresses and found that there was a high % of your serviceable addresses or even current customers that were not represented. And so any of those missing locations can be filed as a challenge to the fabric. Or if you find that, 123 Main Street is not where it's supposed to be, it's in the wrong physical location, that is a different style challenge. So there are several different codes or types of challenges that can be filed on just the address data itself. And then right now, the FCC is indicating that the new national broadband map that's going to use this new BDC filing data is still due to be published about mid-November or so. And once that happens, then the FCC will open up the challenge process on the broadband data side. And so two different challenges that are available, one on the fabric and one that will be available on the physical broadband data. They will be somewhat related, especially if you've got, 123 Main Street isn't showing up in the right spot, but it says it's served. Is that location served or is that address served? And so that may be a totally different type of challenge that could be filed. So there's state level challenges where the mapping data may be a little bit different depending on whether we have BDC data collection, we have other feedback that we have revised or refined broadband information at the state level. And then with the new FCC national broadband map that is due from those BDC filings from you all, from the provider community, there will be an opportunity to review that new data and make those challenges. And the FCC has made it possible to do bulk challenges on providers. So you can upload multiple files to the portal that you all should already have access to for the BDC. And that will be where you're going to be able to make those challenges to say, oh, hey, I looked at this data and I think that provider X, doesn't actually serve at these speeds, and but all of those are posted right now on the FCC BDC site. And they're going to be having additional webinars to work through that process with providers, with states and local governments. And then residents will also be able to make challenges whenever the new mapping application is actually released in mid-November as well.
Great. So folks, if your head is spinning because there are all these processes and challenge opportunities, you're not alone. I think the key here, though, is this moment in the year ahead. It's really essential that stakeholders in our provider community and our cities, counties, and local communities across the state are engaged. and because there's a lot on the line. We want accurate maps so that we know where to direct funding, so that we're being efficient and effective with the grants that we make. But we also want to make sure that we've got accurate maps so that we can make the strongest case to our federal funding partners to get as many dollars to Illinois as possible. Because folks, it's going to take every last dollar to meet our goals. And these opportunities for strong state, federal, local partnership don't arrive very often. And so we really welcome active participation from our provider community, as we've seen over the past couple of years, and look forward to moving ahead, meeting this challenge together. And so that brings me to a couple points I just wanted to make. The Office of Broadband, really excited to announce the Illinois Broadband Lab collaboration with the University of Illinois and campuses across the state, higher education, other nonprofits to meet this moment. And that's the year-long outreach and engagement, planning, data collection, everything that goes into meeting the requirements of the National Telecommunications and Information Administration, NTIA, under the U.S. Department of Commerce for two of their programs, the Digital Equity Program and also the BEAD program, that Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. Maybe $1 billion will be coming to the state to support broadband and digital equity in the years ahead. And so a key part of that is, over the course of the next year, having community-driven outreach, engagement, and data collection. And so we've got to put together two deliverables for NTIA in the next year or so. One is a statewide digital equity plan that identifies gaps, issues with affordability and adoption, and sets forth a plan for addressing those gaps. And also a 5-year action plan for the use of those BEAD funds. So our federal funding partners won't just give us $1 billion. They want to have a concrete plan for how we're going to use those dollars wisely to achieve universal connectivity across the state. Well, infused in both of those plans is really specific outreach and engagement and community coordination. And so I just really invite folks who are on this call or connecting with us after the fact to look for opportunities from the Office of Broadband, from our Broadband Lab here in Illinois, for taking part. And a lot of that work is going to be engaging the community, doing survey work, driving speed tests, or gathering data of other kinds, so that we're able to, again, isolate where the gaps are, coordinate how to fill those gaps with resources, and then again, capture every last federal dollar that we possibly can. And so with that said, we're starting this conversation. You'll hear more and more in the weeks ahead. Check out our Illinois Broadband Connections newsletter. If you haven't subscribed to that, it's available on our Connect Illinois website for subscription. Otherwise, this is absolutely the time to be leaning in. These moments don't come very often, and we want to make sure that we capitalize on that. And so I'll open it up. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to raise them in the chat box. Ashley, Mark, I certainly don't mean to cut you off if you have any additional points that you wanted to drive home here today, but I think that we can view this as the start of a conversation. And specifically, if folks listening to this have an interest in connecting with the FCC to better understand their processes, we'd be happy to have a follow-up conversation with a representative or two from the FCC to bring to life their processes and hear directly from them. I know they have a lot of outreach and engagement that they're doing themselves. So if there's not a desire among our provider community or other local leaders in the state, we won't necessarily schedule one of those. But if folks want it, we'll definitely get it on the schedule. And so with that said, Ashley, Mark, anything that you'd like to add here?
Just that we're really eager to continue to work with you all and get the better data in that we have been doing over the past couple of years. So if you have any concerns with BDC filings and would like to work with us more closely on whatever data you do have, perhaps that was the underlying information that helped derive the BDC filing. But if you're hesitant or have concerns about BDC, we definitely want to continue working with you on the data and information that you do have available so that you can be represented as accurately and detailed as possible, aggregated with all the other providers as it has been on the Illinois broadband map. So we are looking to turn this around very quickly based on some deadlines that we have set with IOB coming up over the next couple months. So hopefully as close to September 30th as possible to get some of that data and information. But Mark and Hannah will continue reaching out to you all as far as receiving data or identifying if what we have on file right now is the most accurate and up to date, and being able to close you all out that way. But Mark, I'll turn it over to you if you've got any other last thoughts.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Ashley. You just nailed it on the head right there. We're going to continue working with everyone in the provider community as closely as possible. Any questions that you have, whether it's related to specific issues with BDC, we'll do our best to address those. And then again, if you're happy with your service area as is and want us just to keep your service area as is, along with your speed information, we will definitely do that as well. We just need to make sure that we identify that and close the records out and keep that as a no update, and you guys the same as you're currently representing for your constituents.
And I see a new question in here. For the BDC submission, we were asked to submit separate data for licensed versus unlicensed wireless, as well as business versus residential. Is the same granular data required for the Connected Nation submission? We would definitely want to work with you on something similar. The focus of the Illinois broadband mapping right now is on the residential side. So we are very heavily focused on where residential services are available. So if you do have different or disparate residential versus business services, we would definitely want to classify those separately. Licensed versus unlicensed is always really good to have in terms of fixed wireless, so the data can be cut different ways. But at the highest level objective is to see where is service available. So if you're a fixed wireless provider and you know where you have 25x3 service, where you have 100x20 service, any other data cut in between 50x5, however it lines up. If we can get the information that shows where is it licensed versus where is it unlicensed, that would be fantastic. So if you have that data in your BDC filing that you feel comfortable with, we would definitely be able to work with that. Or if you need propagation models created based on your tower locations, your frequency spectrum channel width, etc., we can work with you to create propagation models as well. So we want to work with you on whatever type of data you feel most comfortable with sharing and being able to represent on the map. So all of that to say, we would love to have residential service that is split, licensed versus unlicensed, but we would also like to work with you on what you are comfortable with sharing.
Well, Ashley, Mark, thanks again for joining us today and for all your work in putting together a great map that we can be proud of, the Illinois broadband map. We look forward to the work ahead. It's going to be a busy year, but folks, again, a reminder to everybody, we're only going to get this right if we've got our communities, our providers fully engaged. And so if there are any questions or if there's anything that the Office of Broadband, otherwise known as IOB, Illinois Office of Broadband, can do for you, let us know. We'd love to be a strong partner for you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're very grateful for Ashley, Mark, and Matt's time today, and grateful for these efforts in broadband mapping. This is definitely the direction we want to go in, and U of I Extension is happy to continue to host conversations like this. I want to once again mention to everybody on the call today that if you didn't register for this session, please drop your email in a direct message to me, and I'll be sending out an email today with today's materials, as well as a link to our past outreach on community-driven broadband development and any partner resources as well. So thanks to Connected Nation and the Illinois Office of Broadband, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their day.
Thank you, Nancy.